I'm undercover at the headquarters of fast fashion giant Boohoo.
And now, it's Boo time. Let's all go to work. Let's do what we do best.
The company's built its reputation on selling cheap, on-trend clothes.
They've always got like offers on, so just like 30% off, I need to get it.
Boohoo's been criticised for its pursuit of low prices. It promised to change, but has its founder? I'm told by a colleague she lies to suppliers to drive costs down.
Just say that you can cheap muscle. People have it and tell you why.
And discover workers making Boohoo clothes pushed to the limit.
That's unethical treatment of workers. It's as simple as that.
Boohoo's made big promises to suppliers, workers and its customers. Is it letting them down?
This one's really cute.
Online retailer Boohoo has built its success on appealing to shoppers like Anna and Ellie.
This skirt is Boohoo. I think it was about £10 and it was reduced to £6. The jumper is also Boohoo. I'm loving the jacket at the minute. Picked this up from Boohoo and it goes with everything.
Boohoo's known for its extensive range of own brand clothes. Last year, the Boohoo Group had 18 million customers and sales of £1.7 billion.
Boohoo is a fast fashion brand. It's just all online and it's quick, convenient.
They offer very affordable clothing.
They keep on top of the trends. If you look on the new in section, there's hundreds every day.
They've also always got like offers on, so just like 30% off, I need to get it.
Boohoo's faced repeated questions about how its clothes could be made so cheaply. It was accused of pressurising suppliers and turning a blind eye to poor pay and working conditions. So 3 years ago, under pressure, the company commissioned an independent report. It led to Boohoo promising an ethical overhaul called Agenda for Change.
Boohoo promised several things. One of the key things was about pricing. If a brand is asking for too low prices, then it means the supplier can't pay workers. So Boohoo had promised to make sure its buyers were trained and that they would know what a fair cost of a garment is.
But we've been told Boohoo's still treating its suppliers unfairly. So I'm going undercover to investigate. It's April, and I've bagged a job at Boohoo's head office in Manchester as an admin assistant. Working at Boohoo is intense. I'm in the dresses department, and often it's so busy I can only chat to colleagues from behind my computer screens.
Right, there's another upload to do, isn't there?
Prices are negotiated by in-house staff called buyers. They place orders with suppliers and have responsible purchasing principles to follow. Promise number 1, to be fair to suppliers. Boohoo says it understands a fair price for a garment and commits to paying it. It doesn't always look like that to me. One colleague tells me she lies to suppliers to get the cheapest prices.
What did you say the best way to negotiate with them was?
Going low.
Going low?
Going low and you're not getting anywhere than just saying that you can cheap muscle.
Yeah, even if like you haven't got it cheaper up.
Yeah, I didn't have it and tell you why.
Boohoo said it's serious about ensuring its suppliers can make a profit. On the inside, I witness constant pressure to drive prices lower and lower. I'm told about an extraordinary deal a senior manager has just struck. Dresses made in Pakistan for £1.80 each. by far the cheapest I heard about.
How did she manage that?
Oh, I don't actually know how he's doing it. He must be losing money. It's so cheap. Or a midi dress as well.
I know.
The supplier didn't go ahead with the order, but later agreed a range of others that lawyers for Boohoo say allowed it to make a profit. Far from seeing Boohoo take supplier profits seriously, I witnessed them prioritising their own. Time and again, I see them try to cut prices, even on orders that have already been agreed.
Could you forward me that email about the bulk cost prices thing, please?
On one day alone, I'm told to process a 5% price cut on more than 400 orders that have already been agreed, saving Boohoo thousands of pounds.
It was something that had to be done by end of day. And I think that just really illustrates the pressure that's put on teams to get these cost price reductions done as soon as possible, really.
Cutting the price on orders that have already been agreed appears to be a common tactic.
And if we can't improve sales, that's when we start doing things like asking for discounts as much as possible, all of that sort of stuff, because all of that helps us gain a bit more profit.
Boohoo even demands price cuts on clothes that have already been made.
So does this mean we're amending prices for stuff that's already on the way? Would the price not have been agreed before they booked it?
Yeah, but this is a discount.
So does this mean we're amending prices for stuff that's already on the way?
I'm showing my footage to two experts who have worked with some of Britain's biggest high street retailers.
It's not generally a good practice to do those sorts of changes that late on, is it?
No, because the cost of making it has already been built and established.
If there's an underlying reason for that, savings on materials or something, then that's one thing. If it's just imposed, particularly when the order's already been made, then that has massive repercussions for the supplier.
Boohoo says over the last year, it absorbed significant cost inflation. And as raw materials, freight and energy costs came down, it asked suppliers for discounts of between 1% and 10%, passing savings on to customers. We wanted to take a closer look at what Boohoo's clothes cost to make. Here's two dresses. The brown one retails for £15, the red one for £8. Both were made by UK suppliers. Boohoo paid £4.25 for the brown dress. The cost to Boohoo for the red one was £3.20.
It's bonkers, isn't it? It's bonkers.
Chris Greyer spent over a decade at high street giant Next. We ask him if he thinks these prices are fair.
Yeah, okay. I knew I should have brought my calculator.
He decides to cost them up for himself. He adds up fabric costs and overheads, plus labour at UK minimum wage, and includes what he thinks is a fair profit of 10% for the supplier.
Costed thousands and thousands of garments in my time. I had a couple of assumptions in there about the fabric and the usage of it.
For the red dress, Boohoo paid for the fabric, labels and trim, and for a supplier to put it together. Cost to Boohoo, £3.20. Chris says, based on his calculations, a fair price would be £6.76.
The only thing that's variable in there is the labour cost.
And the willingness of the supplier to have a margin.
And for the brown dress, the supplier paid for the fabric and put it together. Chris thinks a fair price would be £7.23. That's £3 more than Boohoo paid.
I struggle to understand, because if I had a factory that was making that at that price in the UK, I wouldn't have a business.
Boohoo's lawyers say both suppliers told the company they made a profit on the dresses. Boohoo says its suppliers pay at least national minimum wage, wherever they operate. This is Mahmood Kamani. He's the multi-millionaire co-founder and now executive chairman of Boohoo.
Mahmood Kamani has got a huge influence on Boohoo. If he's not getting the prices that he wants to get from a supplier, I've heard, you know, Kamani will pick up the phone or send an email to get those prices.
Remember that independent report commissioned by Boohoo? It said for too long, Mahmood Kamani's priorities were allowed to dictate company policy. So, for the last 3 years, while Boohoo said it was transforming itself, I'm told the boss took a bit of a back seat. But in a meeting streamed to Boohoo's staff,
Good morning, everybody.
it looks like he's back with a bang.
I hated every day for 3 years, and now I love every moment today. We couldn't deal with any worse than we dealt with, and now it's boom time. Let's all go to work. Let's do what we do best and go back to basics. I just want to get stuck in. I just can't control myself. But there you go. Any other questions? Come on.
My evidence suggests Mahmood Kamani once again has an iron grip. In a staff meeting, we're told he won't allow buyers to confirm any brand new orders until he's personally approved them.
We now need to send to Mahmood every day what we want to sign off. We're not able to do anything without it having Mahmood's approval first.
While I'm working there, Mahmood Kamani demands more price cuts. Emails reveal how that can pile pressure on suppliers. One supplier is told Mahmood Kamani wants a 5% discount on all its current orders. It's only given a few hours to agree. It doesn't. A few weeks later, the supplier emails Boohoo, furious about an even bigger reduction. Applied, it says, without its agreement. In another email, it says it will lose money because it will be working under cost. We don't know what happened next. In a meeting, colleagues discussed the fallout from another of Mahmood Kamani's price cuts. A Chinese supplier is complaining it didn't agree to the reduction, known as the CPR. The last I heard, the order was stuck at the UK border.
If anyone doesn't know, they have denied the 5% CPR that MK's basically tried to stick on them. So now they won't agree to the price being changed because they don't want the discount, obviously, and now it's stuck in limbo, so they can't get any of the goods in. Who's MK?
Boohoo's lawyers say price reductions are not decided unilaterally by Mr. Kamani. The company says most of its suppliers have worked with Boohoo for a number of years, and that would not be possible if the work was not profitable. Now promise number 2, agreeing realistic timescales for its orders. Boohoo's a market leader in getting its customers the latest styles as quickly as possible. The time between Boohoo making an order and receiving it is known as a lead time. In my department, orders have been taking on average more than 10 weeks. Boohoo wants that cut for all garments.
Nothing is to be approved unless it's 6 weeks or under lead time. So that is a real challenge. Even with the UK, we've definitely not been seeing that sort of lead time from them. It's going to be really hard.
Suppliers in India and China get a week longer. The lead time squeeze works. By the time I leave, suppliers were delivering faster, but many were still not hitting the 6-week target.
Nothing is to be approved unless it's 6 weeks or under.
I'm incredibly worried about that 6 weeks. It doesn't work like that. You're making a t-shirt, you can do it in 2 weeks. If you're making a jacket or a coat, which has got multiple fabrics, multiple trims, the lead time's a lot longer.
Obviously, the shorter the lead times, the more pressure. But if you're always putting that pressure on your supply chain, what we typically then see are problems.
Along with the 6-week rule, there's a new penalty for not meeting the target. After a week's grace, Boohoo imposes a 5% price cut for every week an order's late. Samantha Taylor runs a small sportswear manufacturer that doesn't supply Boohoo. She says that penalty's too high.
No manufacturer is going to be able to claim that level of cost price back from their own suppliers. So it's a lot of financial risk being placed on the manufacturer. They're not making that much margin, and there's only so low they can go.
Boohoo's lawyers say the company's lead times are not unrealistic or unfair, and it's standard practice to have late delivery penalties, which are discussed with suppliers. Boohoo and other retailers use dozens of suppliers here in Leicester. In October, workers gathered to demand job security and better pay.
This is the first time since the 1970s that our people have plucked up the courage to stand up against the power.
This woman has worked in factories making Boohoo clothes for years, and still does, so we're protecting her identity. She says where she's working now pays minimum wage, but it comes at a price.
Since legal wages started, there have been lots of problems. They say they can't afford legal wages. The factories put you under pressure to get so much work done in so many hours. If we don't get them ready, they shout at us. I start crying because they put so much pressure on us.
It's not just her factory. We found evidence of pressure at another factory in Leicester. Tucked inside this building is a Boohoo supplier called Leicester Clothing Limited. From February to June this year, it took orders for more than 70,000 Boohoo garments. An Urdu-speaking colleague asks for a job. He gets a shift. He hears the factory's Boohoo order is behind schedule. It's just after 3:30 p.m, and workers are asking to go home at around 6, the end of their shift, so they can feed their families. Boohoo suppliers have to sign up to a code of conduct. It says overtime should be voluntary. While my colleague's working, he hears a supervisor behind him ordering staff to stay. Some who have been working since the morning leave at 7 p.m. Others stay until 10. Off camera, one worker tells him they're sometimes made to do shifts of up to 13 hours when it's busy.
What I understand from this is people are being forced to stay against their will to work to complete an order. It's completely unacceptable. That's unethical treatment of workers. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely. It's completely against any labour standards, and if we ever found that happening at any of our factories, no matter where in the world, that supplier or that factory would no longer be able to work with us.
That type of behaviour to do forced overtime was supposed to be a thing of the past, and to know that it is going on linked to Boohoo is, it beggars belief.
Leicester says normal working hours are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m, and it never forces workers to stay late. Boohoo says the factory is subject to regular audits. It takes breaches of its supplier codes of conduct extremely seriously and is investigating Panorama's claims. Inside Leicester, clothes had been boxed up for delivery to Boohoo. But what's this? All of them have the name of a different supplier on the labels. Thurmaston Lane.
So here we are, we're in Thurmaston Lane.
Thurmaston Lane is owned by Boohoo. It was opened nearly 2 years ago as part of its ethical overhaul.
We've created 180 jobs in Leicester. This is really about garment manufacturing in the UK.
A manufacturing centre of excellence, offering end-to-end garment production and digital printing according to Boohoo.
Thurmaston Lane was set up almost like a model factory. On paper, it's really good to see a fashion brand owning its own factory where it's responsible for every single aspect of working conditions.
So how come Thurmaston Lane's name is on boxes of clothes that have been made by a factory down the road? Here comes Boohoo's promise number 3, better transparency.
You gonna go see Andy?
Yeah, okay. Back at Boohoo HQ, I'm meeting a manager I've heard a lot about, Andy Hubbard. He tells me he's been hired personally by Mahmood Kamani to maximise profits.
Basically, Mahmood's took me on, and whenever you say, I want it for that, or I'm trying to get it for that, it's my job to try and get what Boohoo want.
Inside Boohoo, Thurmaston Lane is treated as a supplier. It has its own supplier code and buyers place orders with it. Andy Hubbard works at Thurmaston Lane, and some orders are placed directly with him through an operation he runs called TL2. Those orders aren't made by the flagship factory.
Thurmaston do nothing for us. They've got their own structure. We're on the other side of the fence, sir.
And on Andy Hubbard's side of the fence, some orders go to Leicester. He buys the fabric, then cuts it, makes the clothes and trims the final product. In the trade, it's called CMT.
So like make it all, and then...
do all the CMT, so they make it.
Nearly 3 years ago, Boohoo told its Leicester suppliers to bring garment manufacturing in-house, so it knew where and how its clothes were being made. It then told the world it had prohibited subcontracting in its UK supply chain. Here's what Andy Hubbard says.
So I subcontract everything out. I'm a lot cheaper than anyone else. And that's what Mahmood wanted to bring to the table, so you guys could get a bigger margin.
While I was at Boohoo, I discovered hundreds of orders placed with Thurmaston Lane had actually been made by 7 factories in Morocco and 4 in Leicester.
You laugh at that, why?
I mean, the audacity is something else, isn't it? It's their own factory. They've told their customers, we're doing this amazing thing. Come and buy from us. We're ethical. You are helping the British fashion industry. You've got to admire their audacity, haven't you? For nothing else.
Boohoo says the role of Thurmaston Lane has evolved over time. It says it has prohibited subcontracting within the UK since 2021, and it's always permitted subcontracting to authorised factories outside of the UK. Lawyers for Boohoo say, this year Thurmaston Lane made 1% of all Boohoo's garments, and because it's owned by Boohoo, it's contracting third-party suppliers, not subcontracting them.
I think you can get into the semantics of it. If the impression is something's made in one place and then actually you're making something somewhere else where the standards are lower, that would be a worry.
I'm dressed up for Boohoo's glitziest social event of the year. It's summer party. Mahmood Kamani, Boohoo's co-founder and executive chairman, arrives in a Rolls Royce. After what I've discovered, I take the opportunity to ask Mahmood Kamani about his suppliers.
Lovely to meet you, Mahmood.
How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Oh, what's that like?
No good for them.
So, Mahmood Kamani says what's okay for him is not good for Boohoo's suppliers.
That in itself just shows you the attitude towards suppliers, like it's coming from the top down.
It was a different story 3 years ago, when he appeared in front of a committee of MPs.
I'm determined to fix whatever's gone wrong, and I understand things have gone wrong because of the fast-growing nature of this business.
We were given assurances about how the supply chain would be cleaned up, which was reassuring to the committee that they were taking it seriously.
We briefed the chair of the committee about what our investigation revealed.
At first sight, it would appear as though some of the commitments made to our committee about improving their supply chain don't appear to be continuing, and I think that is very regrettable.
A few days after the party, I was called into a meeting to talk about my performance and attention to detail. I'd made some mistakes and was told they'd cost the company money. After 10 weeks at Boohoo headquarters, I was sacked. Lawyers for Mahmood Kamani say he has a respectful relationship with Boohoo suppliers. Boohoo says it's not shied away from the problems of the past and has already delivered significant change. It says it's improved corporate governance, strengthened ethical and compliance obligations on suppliers, regularly publishes its full list of approved global manufacturers, and carries out audits and regular unannounced checks. But my evidence suggests Boohoo's still pushing its suppliers far too hard.
What they did with the agenda for change was to say, you know, we recognise we've done wrong, and this is what we're going to do to rectify it and to remedy it. It's pretty clear that they have not followed through in their promises and their commitments.
And for loyal customers like Anna and Ellie, that matters.
I'm definitely surprised. Obviously that is going to have an impact.
Yeah, do I really want to give my business there and I can go and give it to someone else?
Yeah, for the sake of like £3 or £4 to shop somewhere else.
People need to consider where they're shopping.
Boohoo promised to treat all the suppliers that make its clothes fairly and ethically. My investigation shows some of those promises have been broken.